Noah Williams and Gabriel Martinez were just 10 when they vanished in the summer of 2003. One moment, the two cousins were walking home from a Little League game. The next, they were gone. No suspects, no bodies, no answers. The police searched. The town panicked. Reporters came. Candles were lit. Flyers were printed. But nothing was ever found. For 20 years, their disappearance haunted the small town of Willow Creek, Georgia. Until one day, a man bought an old van buried in weeds at a local salvage yard. He thought he was bringing home a forgotten vehicle. But what he found inside would reopen a case the town had buried and unearth a darkness no one was ready to face. Stay tuned to uncover the chilling secret and tell us in comments where you're watching from. 20 years after the kid's disappearance, Caleb Mercer, a quiet widower and auto mechanic, stopped by Walt Hargrove's salvage yard looking for something to rebuild. He had a habit of restoring old cars, just like his late wife used to do with him. He wasn't looking for anything special, just something that felt right. That's when he saw it. An old Chevy van, half buried in weeds at the far edge of the yard. The paint was sun-bleached. The windows were thick with grime. It hadn't been moved in years. "That one?" Walt muttered. "Belonged to my brother. Dale. Died in a fire years ago. Van's been sitting ever since." Something about it unsettled Caleb. It wasn't just old. It felt hidden. Walt shrugged. "You want it? Take it for $500. Caleb nodded, and with that, he unknowingly brought home a grave. That evening, Caleb rolled the van into his garage, closed the doors, turned on the work light. He opened the driver's door, and a wave of musty air hit him. It smelled like dust, and something else. Stale, sour, faintly metallic. Inside were forgotten fast food wrappers, dried stains, and an air freshener that hadn't swung in years. But under the passenger seat, something caught his eye. A chain. Rusted. Small. Bolted to the floor. He froze. Caleb pulled back the torn carpet, and that's when he saw it. Two names, carved into the metal wall in jagged lines. Noah and Gabriel. 2003. His breath caught. He reached deeper under the seat and found a zippered pouch. Inside was a child's bracelet. The beads cracked and faded. N+G, and tucked behind the paneling. A small notebook with a single line, written in trembling handwriting. "He won't let us go." Caleb hadn't slept. He couldn't stop thinking about the bracelet, the names carved into metal. By morning, he was standing in front of the Willow Creek Sheriff's Office, evidence bagged and clutched in both hands. He wasn't some outsider to the case. He'd grown up in town. He remembered the fear when the boys went missing. He remembered the candlelight vigils, the missing posters, the empty baseball field. He just never thought he'd be the one to reopen it. Inside the station, Sheriff Victor Green sat behind a cluttered desk. Older now, heavier in the face, and slower in his movements. But Caleb remembered when he used to wear a deputy's badge. He was there when the boys disappeared. One of the few who never looked away, even when the town did. Caleb laid the bracelet on the desk, then opened the notebook to the page. The moment Green saw it, he stopped breathing. Where did you get this?" Caleb told him. About the van, the salvage yard, the hidden compartment, the shackle, the names scratched into the wall. Green just stared. Then, quietly, he opened a bottom drawer and pulled out an old case folder. The paper was yellowed. The photos inside, faded but unforgettable. Two boys, smiling. One of them wearing a red cap, the other a beaded bracelet with the letters N+G. "Lucinda, Gabriel's mother, made those," the sheriff said. Said it was to remind them they were never alone. He paused. "She was the loudest voice in this town, held press conferences, knocked on every door, wouldn't let the media forget." His jaw clenched. Then she died. Car crash. Took a piece of the town with her. Caleb shook his head slowly. "I don't think they're dead." Green blinked. What are you talking about? The bracelet was buried under the seat, with a notebook no one else could have written, unless those boys were in that van, and someone kept it quiet for 20 years. The room fell into silence. Then the door buzzed open. A deputy poked his head in, visibly shaken. "Sheriff, you need to come out front. Now." Green and Caleb stepped outside. A handful of people were gathering, whispering. And there, at the center of them, stood a woman in black. Thin, weathered, face half hidden by a hood. But her eyes were unmistakable. Caleb recognized her before the sheriff did. Because you never forget the face of a mother who never stopped looking. Lucinda Martinez. She stepped forward, eyes locked on Sheriff Green, and in one hand, she held a manila folder. In the other, a key. The station doors shut behind them, muffling the noise of the murmuring crowd outside. Inside, the air felt heavier. Lucinda sat across from Sheriff Victor Green and Caleb, her hands resting on the manila folder like it weighed more than paper ever could. She hadn't said much, not yet. Caleb studied her. Her face was thinner than he remembered, her eyes sharper. Not broken, just different. She looked like someone who had been hunted, like someone who had stopped being afraid a long time ago. "I didn't die," she said softly. "I needed the world to think I did." Green stared at her. "Why? Why disappear?" Lucinda didn't hesitate. "Because they were watching me. Because no one in this town was going to save Gabriel. Or Noah. So I made sure they stopped looking at me, so I could start looking for them." She opened the folder and slid the first photo across the table. Caleb felt his stomach twist. 2 boys. Alive. Terrified. In a dark room, concrete floor, metal bars behind them, and standing just out of focus. Dale Hargrove, the man whom the van that Caleb had bought belonged to. Lucinda laid down a second photo. This one was clearer. 2 men stood behind the boys. One was Dale, the other wore a police uniform. His face was younger, but familiar. "That badge number," Lucinda said, tapping the photo, "belonged to Chief Warren Pritchard." The silence in the room turned ice cold. Sheriff Green leaned back, the color draining from his face. "Pritchard, he was the one who shut it down, told me to stop digging, said there were no leads." Lucinda nodded, "Because he was one of them." Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a small rusted key. "This," she said, "is for the storage unit. The one Dale kept under a fake name. I broke into it 3 nights ago." She handed Caleb a folded piece of paper. Inside, a ledger. Names, dates, dollar amounts, transactions. Each one linked to a missing child. Near the bottom was an entry that stopped Caleb cold. September 14th, 2003, $10,000. WC. He looked up slowly. "WC," he said. "Is that?" Lucinda's eyes didn't blink. "William Carter," she said. "Mayor of Willow Creek at the time. My ex-husband, Gabriel's father." The room had gone silent. Caleb stared at the name in the ledger. WC, William Carter. Lucinda's ex-husband, Gabriel's father. And 20 years ago, the mayor of Willow Creek. Sheriff Green sat back, stunned. "You're telling me," he said quietly, "the mayor was involved?" Lucinda nodded once. "I couldn't prove it back then. But I always knew. He kept secrets behind that locked study door. I saw them once. Photos, papers. Names, he said, didn't concern me." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small rusted key. "He never knew I took this. I've kept it for 20 years. Green's voice was quiet. "Where is that study now?" Lucinda didn't hesitate. "His estate, just outside town." Within minutes, they were in Caleb's truck, tires crunching along the back roads of Willow Creek. The air felt heavier with every mile. None of them spoke. The Carter estate appeared ahead like a relic of a town that had lied to itself for decades. Cracked stone pillars, a warped iron gate, ivy strangling the walls. The house had sat untouched since William Carter's death, but something about it still felt guarded. Lucinda led the way inside. Dust clung to the air. Every step echoed. Faded portraits lined the walls, reminders of a family that had once controlled everything. She stopped at the end of a long corridor, in front of a wide oak door. "This is it," she said. She reached for the key. Caleb raised a hand. "Wait." Something felt wrong. Too still. Too clean. The air held a tightness that didn't belong. Lucinda ignored the warning. She turned the key. The lock clicked. The door opened. The heat came first. Then the blast. A wall of fire erupted from inside the room, swallowing the hallway in a roar of light and flame. Caleb hit the ground. Green pulled Lucinda back, shielding her with his coat as the ceiling cracked above them. The study had been rigged. The moment the door opened, everything inside ignited. Papers, files, photos, gone in seconds. They stumbled through the smoke, coughing, choking, half dragging one another down the front steps. By the time they made it onto the lawn, the front of the house was collapsing inward. Lucinda fell to her knees. Her eyes reflected orange flames. "They knew," she whispered. "They knew we were coming." Green stood beside her, silent. Caleb wiped blood from his forehead. He turned toward the fire one last time. "I saw the safe," he said. It was open. Lucinda looked up. "What?" "When the door blew, I saw it for a second. I grabbed something." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a half-burnt black notebook, charred at the edges, but intact. Lucinda stared at it, her voice barely audible. "What's inside?" Caleb opened the cover. Pages curled from the heat. Names were listed in careful handwriting. Dates, amounts, initials. And at the bottom of one page, barely legible beneath the smoke-stained ink, was a single name: Sheriff Frank Green. The notebook slipped in Caleb's hands. Lucinda looked up at the sheriff, her voice no longer shaking. "You were one of them?" Green didn't flinch. He didn't deny it. He just stood there, lit by the fire behind them. "I wasn't like them," he said finally. His voice was steady, but heavy, like someone who had been rehearsing that line for years. Lucinda didn't look away. "You took money to keep quiet about children being taken." Green nodded once. "I did." Caleb took a step forward. "Why?" Green's eyes found his. "Because they gave me a choice. Look the other way, or disappear. I had a wife, a newborn daughter. I thought I could survive it. Thought if I stayed close enough, I could eventually take them down from the inside." He looked at the burning house. "But that was a lie, too." Lucinda crossed her arms. "And now?" "Now I'm with you," Green said, "whether you believe me or not." A long pause stretched between them. Caleb's voice was low. "You knew, and you let them keep doing it." "I tried to stop them," Green said, "but I never tried hard enough." Lucinda stepped forward, her face unreadable. "You helped bury my son." Green met her gaze. "And I'll help you dig up everyone who was involved." Caleb watched the two of them, standing in the red glow of the fire, as the notebook trembled in his hands. It was no longer just a list of names. It was a kill list, or a hit list, or a death sentence. Someone was trying to erase every person who could expose the truth. And now they were on that list. They didn't sleep that night. By morning, Caleb had installed 2 deadbolts on his garage. Green called in sick to the station. Lucinda sat alone in Caleb's kitchen, flipping through the charred notebook again and again, memorizing every name. Then a thought surfaced. "What about William Carter's son?" Caleb turned. "You mean your son?" Lucinda nodded slowly. "Gabriel. If he's alive, someone had to keep him hidden all this time." Green rubbed his jaw. And if he's not, someone made sure we never found out. They all knew what that meant. Someone still had answers. Someone was still out there. And someone had killed for less. Caleb closed the notebook. We need to move first. Lucinda met his eyes. Then we find whoever's cleaning up this mess. And we stop them before they get to us. They didn't have a plan, just a name, an address, and a sinking feeling that time was running out. Caleb drove. Lucinda rode beside him, flipping through the burned notebook again and again. In the back seat, Sheriff Green scanned the list of names, stopping at one that hadn't been crossed out yet. Richard Pritchard, son of the late police chief Warren Pritchard, the same man who had shut down the investigation 20 years ago. Richard had stayed in town, inherited his father's home, and lived quietly since the old man's death 2 years earlier. Too quietly. They pulled up to the house just after sunset, lights off, curtains drawn, overgrown yard. Something about it felt staged. Green stepped out first. Caleb followed. Lucinda stayed close. Green knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. Then Caleb spotted it. The mail. Overflowing. Days old. Green looked at him. Door's getting kicked. Caleb didn't hesitate. One strong hit, and the door cracked inward. The smell hit first. Rot. Metal. Something darker beneath it. They entered slowly, flashlights sweeping the walls. The house was a mess. Newspapers piled high, food left out. But it wasn't until they reached the living room that they stopped moving. Richard Pritchard was dead. His body lay sprawled across the floor, eyes wide, throat slit clean through. Blood soaked the carpet, still fresh. But what stopped Caleb cold wasn't the body. It was the message. Scrawled across the wall in Richard's blood, 5 jagged letters. Still digging. Lucinda backed away slowly. Green crouched beside the body, grim-faced. He's been dead maybe an hour. Caleb looked around the room. Then someone knew we were coming. Green nodded. Or they were here waiting. They checked the rest of the house. Nothing. Whoever had done it had moved fast and clean. But they had left the message behind like a calling card. A warning. Back at the truck, Lucinda was quiet. Caleb looked at her. You okay? She shook her head. Number. And that's good, because I'm not going to be calm about this anymore. She turned to Green. They're killing anyone connected to the list. He nodded slowly. They're covering their tracks. Caleb looked down the road. Which means we're next. Lucinda pulled out the notebook again, fingers tight on the binding. Then we stop waiting. We go to the FBI. Now. Green didn't argue. He just looked back at the blood-stained house. They think we're going to be scared. Caleb shook his head. They made the mistake of thinking Lucinda Martinez was gone. Lucinda turned, voice sharp. And now they're going to remember why that was never true. They didn't wait until morning, Lucinda insisted. She'd waited 20 years. She wasn't waiting another hour. By midnight, Caleb's truck was cutting through empty roads, heading toward the closest regional FBI field office. The plan was simple. Hand over the ledger, the photos, the notebook, everything. Make it too big for Willow Creek to hide anymore. But they didn't get far. Not even halfway out of town, Caleb spotted them in the rearview mirror. Headlights, 2 sets. No license plates. Green looked back. We're not alone. Caleb's grip tightened on the wheel. The headlights sped up. Lucinda turned in her seat. They're not following. They're closing. Caleb floored it. Gravel kicked up behind them as they tore through a stretch of back road that twisted through the woods. The headlights stayed locked behind them, tight, coordinated, precise. This wasn't random. This was planned. Then a black SUV appeared ahead, blocking the road. They were boxed in. Caleb slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. The truck skidded sideways and stopped just inches from the blockade. Men stepped out. Dark clothing. No badges. No words. Just weapons. "Down!" Green shouted. The first shot shattered the passenger window. Lucinda ducked. Caleb reached under the seat, pulling out the old revolver Green had insisted he keep. Green fired twice through the windshield. One of the gunmen dropped. The others scattered, returning fire. Bullets tore through the truck frame. Glass exploded around them. Caleb threw the truck in reverse, spun the wheel, and aimed for a side path, a narrow clearing between trees. They barely made it. The truck ripped through the forest line, branches clawing at the doors, tires slamming into roots and dips. Behind them, the gunmen scrambled to regroup. Lucinda clutched the ledger to her chest, breathing hard. They won it. "That book," Green said, reloading, "isn't just evidence anymore. It's a kill order." They didn't stop until they reached the edge of a collapsed bridge, an old construction project that had been abandoned years ago. Caleb slammed on the brakes. Beyond the broken concrete, the land dropped into a steep ravine. Behind them, the engines were catching up. "We can't outrun them," Caleb said. Green looked around, then at the truck. "We don't have to." He turned to Lucinda. "You still have the notebook?" She nodded. Caleb opened the glove box and pulled out a decoy, a stack of blank paper wrapped in a manila folder. Lucinda stared at it. "You're thinking what I think you're thinking?" Green smirked. "Let's make it look like we died." They bailed out just seconds before Caleb jerked the wheel and sent the truck flying off the edge. It plunged into the ravine. Seconds later, impact. Flames exploded skyward. The gunmen arrived just in time to see the fireball rise. From the trees above, Caleb, Lucinda, and Green lay flat, covered in leaves and dirt, watching silently as the figures peered down into the wreckage. They bought it. They believed the story was over, but it wasn't. Not even close. They waited in the woods until the gunmen were gone. Only then did Caleb pull out the phone. He dialed a number Lucinda had given him weeks earlier, one she said belonged to a federal agent she once trusted, back when she still believed in systems. It rang once. Then a voice answered. "This is Agent Carter." Caleb spoke clearly. "My name is Caleb Mercer. I have evidence of child trafficking, corruption, and multiple murders in Willow Creek, Georgia. I have names, and we were just attacked, trying to get it to you." Silence. Then, "Where can we meet?" The next 48 hours moved fast. A federal task force descended on Willow Creek. Storage units were seized. Arrests were made. Warrants executed. The ledger was real, and it was damning. Warren Pritchard, William Carter, 3 town council members, a retired judge. And yes, names from surrounding towns, too. For years, they had bought silence with power. But the moment Caleb dropped the ledger on an FBI conference room table, the silence broke. Lucinda testified. Caleb gave a full statement. Sheriff Green resigned, turned over everything he had, and vanished from public view. He never denied what he had done, but he made sure to help finish what he started. Months later, a memorial was built near the baseball field where Noah and Gabriel were last seen. Their bodies were never recovered, but their names were. Set in stone, 2 red caps, 2 small beaded bracelets, and a plaque that read, "Lost, but never forgotten. Found, not in body, but in truth." Lucinda stood there alone one morning, long after the crowd had left. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "You can rest now." Caleb restored the van, not to drive, but to preserve. It now sat in a museum display behind glass. Some truths are buried not by time, but by silence. For 20 years, a mother's pain, 2 boys' names, and a town's guilt were locked away, until one man opened the wrong van at the right time. What he found didn't just solve a mystery. It forced the world to remember the lives it tried to forget. But ask yourself this. If justice meant risking everything, your safety, your name, your peace, Would you still chase the truth? Or would you walk away like the rest? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to help us tell more stories that matter. And from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story.